Remember when Invincible and Amber called it quits? Well, she thought she'd found love again with Gary, but things took a dark turn. He became controlling and abusive, and she was trapped. Now, the last person she thought she'd turn to is her only hope, the guy she used to call her lover and hero, Invincible. In the comic, before Invincible and Amber break up, she meets a friendly stranger who lends her a book she needs to study for her test. But Gary also needs this book, so he collects Amber's number, and they agree to meet up and study together. What starts as an innocent study session blossoms into a whirlwind romance, and Amber finds herself falling for Gary because, unlike Invincible, who has to go off saving people every time, Gary has always been there for Amber, which is something Amber really cherishes and appreciates. After Invincible and Amber break up, Amber ends up with Gary, and Invincible ends up with atomeve. Now everybody is in a relationship, everybody is happy. Well, not in a long shot.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
After much time has passed at the Graysons' residence, in Mark's room, Eve and Mark are discussing getting their own place instead of always doing it in his room, since Debbie could hear them at any time. Their discussion is interrupted by a phone ringing, and Oliver brings the phone to Mark, since the call is for him. Much to his surprise, Oliver meets Eve in Mark's room and asks what Eve is doing. Mark quickly interrupts the question by collecting the phone and picking up the call. Now, the person calling is Amber, and Mark says he will be there in 3 minutes. Eve becomes worried since the call happens to be brief and Mark happens to be in a hurry. Mark grabs his costume, and this actually makes Eve even more worried. He tells Eve that it's nothing serious and assures her that he won't get hurt and that he's going to tell her everything when he gets back, and Invincible flies off to Amber's place. At first, everything seems to be normal, and Invincible asks if Amber was okay. Amber explains that the past few weeks have been hard for her. Her grandfather died, and she would have called, but since she's already seeing Gary, it would be awkward. She thought she and Gary were close enough. He was so nice, but he has problems of his own. Invincible sits next to her and tells her he feels horrible. He had no idea what was going on. Amber continues to ramble about Gary, about how great and understanding he is, but sometimes he gets angry, and she doesn't know who else she could talk to. This is when Amber turns her face to Invincible, and we see how swollen her left eye is. Tears start to drip down her face as she says, "He didn't mean it." Invincible becomes so furious and immediately asks where Gary is. The next thing we see is Invincible in his costume trying to drop Gary from a rooftop. Gary begins to beg Invincible not to drop him. Invincible says to Gary, "You don't get to do what you did. You don't ever hurt her again. Ever. He may be out of her life now, but he still cares a great deal about her, and he won't let him treat her like that again." Gary continues to ramble from fear, saying he's sorry. He apologized to her. He didn't mean to. He doesn't know what happened. He begged Invincible to let him go. Invincible, still angry, tells Gary that if he hurts her again, he will know, and he will kill him. Invincible tosses Gary away and flies off. After some time, Invincible goes to see Amber to check on her. Amber becomes so glad that Invincible is there. She explains to Invincible that she just got off the phone with Gary, that she doesn't know if Invincible found him, but he doesn't need to say anything to him now that everything is okay. She tells Invincible that she knows what Gary did, and there's no excuse for it, and it's just a one-time thing. He already apologized and told her how upset he is about it. Amber, not knowing that Gary mainly apologized because Invincible threatened him, still thinks Gary is a good guy, and she's going to actually give him another chance. She thanks Invincible for being there for her, and Invincible, still worried about her, asks if she's sure about her decision. She tells Mark not to worry about her, that everything is going to be fine. What do you think of Amber's decision? Is she making the right choice, or is she just being stupid?